I can tell you, never in my experience did I see anyone self-serving at all with regard to what they brought to the table. So, Mr. Baker, we're lucky to have somebody that's an expertise that's missing on the planning commission. Mr. Powell is not I mean, I know his name comes up, but he's not a real estate guy. We're missing that. We don't know what people coming to Bremerton are looking for to settle here. And so I think that's a good addition because we're missing that area of expertise. Plenty on multimodal, plenty on landscaping and architecture, and just the general. Ms. Kirk and Ms. Dorrell bring kind of a general perspective of the city at large. So anyway, I always valued that. And I never, in all my time, I don't believe I ever had a true realtor on the commission.
I want to ask Director Spencer a question. How many people are currently on the planning commission and how many spots are available?
There are 7 slots with one desiring retirement pending his appointment.
Okay.
This is with you go into a spot if somebody who desires to retire from the
Okay. And then with this and the retirement, we'd be fully staffed on the planning commission. Yes. Okay. Other questions?
I think it needs to be said too that this is actually a Bremerton resident who opened up a Bremerton shop. This is a mom and pop real estate company. That's his company, and it's over right down the street from my house. And I think it would be different if, I mean, the emails that we're getting have this predatory lens from a real estate point of view in them, and also a little bit of an ethical issue kind of sprinkled into there. But from everything I've experienced with this actual person, Mr. Baker, and his business, it's a Bremerton business and he does Bremerton business. He buys and sells here in the city, is an asset to the city. And it makes me sad to think that we would look at somebody's profession and believe that they shouldn't be a part of a commission. That, again, the discussion has been had that he will recuse himself when necessary. And it has been brought up that there could be an effect on his business with this, because there will be an ethical point on his side of real estate that he may not be able to work with certain individuals because of the knowledge he actually gained from being on this commission. So there's a chance by helping serve Bremerton, he is actually going to lose out on money in this. And then, additionally, I feel like it's kind of odd. I'm a licensed real estate agent. I do real estate all the time. So to sit here and think that, and this is an elected position, like people actually voted for me knowing my background and all of this, to sit there and to think that he should not be on a planning commission, that this is kind of, that knowledge is the wheelhouse. It's the folks that we would want making these decisions because they understand bigger pictures of things, to vilify that because of his profession, when I will flat out speak for the man that I have met a few times. He is delightful and wonderful and very intelligent, and small world situation. We were up for the same house in 2022, and it's the house I live in. So like that's how I ended up. We had a small little meet cute out in the street. Like, I put in for this house, and I was like, that's my house. And so I think that he's a stand-up individual doing really good work in Bremerton, and I would hate to turn away somebody based on what's on paper and not the fact that we need to give him the benefit of the doubt to recuse himself if he, if there is something that comes up. And that's it.
Well, go ahead, Anna.
Thanks. Coming back to the vilification in just a sec. Andrea, I call you Andrea during study session.
Andrea.
All right.
Please don't call me.
I won't. My record is pretty good. How many applications are there?
Right now, there's more that came in since we did last year. We conducted a couple of interviews this summer because maybe there's appointment, and since I've been on vacation, there's been a couple of vacations.
So were there were like 10, 12-ish?
It's like,
Okay,
Two.
okay, do they expire, these applications?
I keep them on, especially when we do interviews, I keep them for future vacancies.
Um,
I was trying to choose the right person at the right time. I present the candidate qualifications and their strengths to the mayor.
thank you. I feel really certain that nobody is vilifying anyone here. It's the planning commission makeup should be reflective of all of Bremerton. And right now, I think the point that's being made is that it's a little top heavy, or it's
That's
a little
not true. That's just
I'm
not
just saying it's
true.
I have an idea.
Let's
Is it possible,
talk about.
Andrea, that on the website where you have the planning commission members, to just maybe put what their specialty is next to it?
We don't,
Well, there is a very strong feeling in the community that that there's a lot more folks who have real estate interests than not.
something that's customary. I worked for 3 cities.
Mhm.
We've never put the credentials in like
I
volunteer.
believe that these emails were triggered by one individual because we got them all at the same time. And or something like that. I don't believe we should, after getting a few emails, we've discussed it, I think, thoroughly. And I'd like to move and see if we can just move this forward. I get the concerns, I really do. But when you make false statements, that doesn't do anything for your cause. We do not have a majority of developers and realtors on the planning commission. I'm sure that Director Spencer we have 2, one from an architectural firm and one from a development company. I mean, other than that, I can't think of anybody who you all object to. I you know, when you got the expertise, you got the expertise. And I don't think the objection has substance. I think it's stereotypes and vilification.
Is there any other conversation on this?
I just kind of wanted to, the planning commission, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a different body than we are here. And, it's a place for the department administration to take things to a group of 7 individuals, and vet and have discussions and talk through and ask questions and things like that. The folks on planning commission aren't coming up with ideas on necessarily how to change it. They might say, oh, well, I was reading about ADUs in Oregon, this cool thing existed. But for the most part, it's to have the process. It's to sort of vet and talk about things. And, I think having somebody who has a company, who has people who are meeting with families that are buying homes in Bremerton, that are selling homes in Bremerton, I think that is valuable. And I think it would have been valuable when I was on council. And, somebody's gonna rotate off soon. I'm sure it's been heard what the goal, what we think is important, and we can put more weight behind that if we want to, if we're able to sort of, I don't know where the planning committee exists, if it's in the charter or if it's anyways,
Charter.
But so, well, we may change the charter too. So I've heard about that for years. Anyways, so there's, we can be certainly more clear on what we'd like to see, what we feel the community sees. But I will say that on my, this has only been a little bit of a recent thing. And I trust staff in their job.
So how do we want to treat this? Consent or general business?
consent. I've never seen an appointment go to
I'm
general.
just asking.
I'm just giving you some
Consent would
history.
be my
General
recommendation.
business.
Jennifer, consent or general?
Whatever.
General business.
Well, that's not very helpful. Well, I think it makes sense to say,
The mayor's, okay, I'll go ahead and speak. It's the mayor's commission. I mean, it sounds to me, I mean, just a straw poll, you got 4 people who want to see it go forward and 2 people who don't. I'm just
well,
agnostic.
I'm just asking if you want it on consent or general.
Was it helpful to give you my reason why I don't have a preference?
Sure, okay. So, I think we should put it on consent and clearly let everybody know that they are allowed. As I've talked to 2 of those people and told them that if it's on consent, you can still get up and object or say what you want to say. So it's still, the public still has a say in this. So we'll put that on consent. Okay. And next, Mayor Wheeler is going to join me in presenting item A2. Is everybody able to read the amended agenda where
Yeah.
we added Jose onto it? Does anybody have any questions? He was formerly on LTAC, working for, I think he was working for Oyster Bay.
Baymont. He was on Baymont before.
Baymont, okay. And he's pretty excited about working with us again and has some new ideas for LTAC, which we always need new ideas there. But is there any discussion about his qualifications or if,
I like the way he worked himself up.
yeah? Anybody else have any comment? Okay, how should we treat this?
Consent.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Or LTAC. Not because of this guy, but just it's so hard to get people on.
It is.
New application was.
Was it?
Mhm.
And that's,
Did you send feedback to the appropriate government agency?
I haven't been this strong. I almost didn't come tonight. Like I literally had to lay down 2 hours to try to get my
Well, perhaps
anxiety
you-
addressed.
perhaps you
Is
should
that
have
bad?
started working on it
Well,
earlier.
yeah.
Okay.
But there's zero confidence that when you put in there safe.
Oh,
Every time
Oh,
you
the
hit
form?
save, it says, your stuff's not saved.
Oh,
Oh, son of
on
a.
our,
And then it's not even clear that there's a way to save. It's like this other place that you see that there's a place to like create an account.
I don't think it's
When you
below
look
chair
at it, it
today.
looks
I
like
think
a
his chair is regular height. I think I left it alone.
I'll ask Kelsey if,
I told him I was gonna have to stop using it.
you're the.
But it was different. We changed a lot.
yes,
right,
Yeah.
but you're telling me that the
It's-
technology's not.
the
And
technology.
then they wanted to know like every award and every detail on every award we've gotten.
Well, it,
For me, it was since 2018. I don't have that kind of data available. I have to do a public
it's
record.
like, shouldn't you know that? Yeah, I got it.
They do have it
Anyway.
all.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
They have yours.
Okay.
Okay, let's move on to item A3. I'd like to welcome Managing Engineer Shane Weber, please, here to present item A3.
Good evening, City Council. I'm happy to be here to talk about the Warren Avenue Bridge multimodal project. And the item that I have tonight is a supplemental agreement with WashDOT for the project. And basically what this amendment is going to be is it's going to be to allow our structural engineers to complete the structural engineering. Okay. Now, the original contract that we executed for this project for the structural engineering in 2021. And so part of what this amendment is going to be, it's going to be basically a cleanup of what we originally thought that we had in the contract 5 years ago. And of course, the project has been through a lot of public outreach, public engagement. And what we thought we were building back in 2021 ended up changing pretty significantly to what we're designing right now. And so I have a list of scope elements here of what has changed. I think a couple of the big ones are that originally we were thinking that we're going to be building the bridge equidistant on both sides. And so what that ended up doing was there's three different types of superstructure on the bridge. And so we thought we are going to have three different designs. Because we have that has changed and we have the current scope of work, which is a 5-foot sidewalk on the west side and a 12-foot shared use path on the east side, ended up taking us into looking at 6 different designs on the project. So that was a big one. We have maintenance items with the DOT that have been discussed over the years with rebuilding catwalk and bridge. We have rebuild coordination design support that we have included in this now that we didn't have previously. We were able to go through with the 6 different designs and look at the seismic analysis for the bridge and come to the conclusion that we didn't need a seismic analysis for the bridge. And that was some additional work with the additional design that we ended up doing. We had expanded public outreach that we didn't anticipate. We have 4 different pedestrian railing concepts that we've put together that we're currently looking at right now. And then when we originally have this agreement developed, we were thinking that we'd be done in 2023. So obviously the timeline has shifted on us, and obviously, people get to be more expensive over time. So that's included here. We do have 2 new elements in here with geotech support services. We worked with WashDOT to be able to provide those services as opposed to a consultant. They're much cheaper and in this contract. So I'm pretty happy that we're able to get WashDOT to do that work because they're a lot cheaper than consultants. And then obviously the construction phase engineering support is something that we didn't anticipate back then that we've included in this. So there is actually some construction dollars set aside in this contract to provide that construction phase engineering support. The project schedule as it sits today is that we just had a 60% design milestone in June and July of this year. So we're moving along with design, which is great. We're currently addressing design comments on the 60%. And we're really looking at our estimate on the project and tightening that up right now with the comments that we have. So we're hoping to be done with our 60% comment review and response the week after next. And then we're going to be moving on to 90% design for October of this year is what we're shooting for, which is exciting. And we're really working hard to get there. And then with 100% submittal, we're thinking around January of 2027 with an advertisement. If everything goes well, we're able to move forward with the schedule as we have right now, barring any issues of permitting or utilities, and which could throw a monkey wrench in that. But we're really thinking that May of next year is really achievable for us for anything scheduled for the project. You'll see in the amendment, because we added construction phase support in there, the actual termination of the agreement is a couple of years out, and that's because we are anticipating that this is going to be a 2-year construction project at this point in time, and we're still working on that right now. We'll be moving forward, but we want to make sure that we have the contract in place to be able to for WashDOT to support us during construction. Now, the original, moving on to the contract financials, the original contract amount was $315,000. With these added items in here, I kind of broke that down in the presentation. We would need an additional $684,000 to complete the structural design on the project, including the construction phase support for WashDOT, and all that's broken down here. So the total agreement amount would be about $999,602 the total. Now, that amount is included in the design funding for the project. So that's a good thing. We are still, like I said, continuing to work on the construction estimates that we received at 60%. So we're hitting that pretty hard, have been, and hopefully by in a couple of weeks here we'll be done with that. Everything is funded right now. There's $27 million in the budget with no city match and state funded at this point. So that's all I have on this item right now for you tonight.
It's going to happen.
Thank you. questions? Rick, go ahead.
Um,
Just to add that this
It did
came
go through
before
that.
Public Works Committee.
so you're saying the 999,000 is being matched, is not coming out of the city's fund?
No, that's
It is.
the entire state.
It's all state, so, okay, even though you're doing the work, we're doing the work with our city engineers. So it's like reimbursable.
Yeah, so it's a grant that we have an agreement with the state, and then we incur costs and we seek reimbursement from the state for our city costs.
Yeah.
But the state is doing the structural engineering work, so they would be charging to that state grant. And they
Okay.
charge directly to the state grant without us having to seek reimbursement for that.
So this 999, is that reimbursement or is that combination of your work plus state's?
That's just the state structural.
That's the
engineering.
state, okay, all right.
Other questions? 100% grant funded, no match.
We like those.
Yeah.
I want it, it's like, we're really here.
I have a couple of questions. If you guys don't have questions? Okay. So, the U-bit, have they determined now that it's not gonna be just our U-bit, that they're gonna be using that U-bit on other bridges throughout the state?
They've,
Or is that gonna be a separate agreement?
that's gonna be a separate agreement that, we will have with the state for the purchase of the U-bit. Now, I think the way the conversation's going right now, we haven't gone into the depth of the conversation on the U-bit just yet. Plan on doing that in the next, month and a half. And, the way we're attacking that is we're gonna have, some sort of MOU, we think, in place that describes the responsibilities for the U-bit. The way the conversation's going right now is it'd be a purchase by the city. It would be going to the state.
Oh, it's coming to the Armed Forces Day Parade.
Who would raise it?
Just coming to all the parades.
Will you finally go to an armed forces?
So that's a good conversation. Transfer to the city, and they would use it for their purpose for the bridge, and I'm assuming that they would use it for other. So that's kind of sort of the way.
So then the state would reimburse us rental or something. That's,
They'll own it. They will own it.
oh, they'll own it. They will own it,
Yeah, right.
but we have to buy it.
With
And
their
then
money.
But then we had previous conversations that the day that we started talking about it, they didn't have a use for that, but they thought that they were going to have a use for it so that we would get some of that upfront money out, which is all grant funded to buy the U-bit.
Yeah, so more.
So that's
more to
gonna be
come.
a separate, okay.
Yeah, more to come on that. We haven't gotten into the details of what that looks like, just yet. But yes, you're right. That was part of the conversation we started talking.
So then when I was reading this too, it says sidewalk width still may change, that's not a given.
Yay.
It's, we have in the design, the sidewalk widths that we talked about for the resolution,
Mhm.
5 feet on the west side, 12 feet on the east side.
Correct.
And, right now, that's what we're moving forward. That's in the 60% design. We're moving towards 90%. So,
Okay, but it was in here, so that kind of raised
yeah, I
a
think
flag
it was
with me.
kind of- Yeah, it's not, I don't see that cheap.
So, and it says this doesn't include a deterrent fence. Is a deterrent fence, is that like a suicide fence or is it, I mean, what is a deterrent fence?
It's a fence that is built up really high.
Yes. So that's not included.
The railing is set low on the bridge because of the maintenance requirements for you to get down there. So it's not something that would,
How low?
54 inches is the height of the railing that we have. And that's because of bike handlebars. We need to have it up that
So then that would be, the state owns the bridge, so at some point the state might decide to modify that if they felt it was needed.
They could.
Yeah.
We haven't had that conversation. And they could maintain it over that U-bit. So it's really the U-bit use the limit.
They have removable ones too, I'm sure. They must. Okay. Does this include the staircases? Are they designing those, the replacement staircases?
No, our civil designers do that work.
Okay,
So they're offering for a better civil designers doing the staircase as part of that.
okay. All right. Okay, I think that's all my questions. Anybody else have any? How should we treat this?
One more question. One more question.
Go ahead.
So on the bridge is a 12-foot wide sidewalk, 15.
Should use path right on the stuff. Right.
So how do you get to it when you're coming down
Mhm.
Wheaton Way from Sheridan?
Right.
You go in like a little, you're in this side, you go out, you're modifying the sidewalk from Sheridan to the bridge?
We're not going too far off the bridge for the sidewalking. We're probably going about 15 to 100 feet. We're gonna have to taper in the wider sidewalk from the bridge into the existing sidewalk. So we're actually bringing in the barrier on the bridge to reduce the shoulder and the lane widths, to be able to optimize the width on the bridge. So there's gonna be some curb line change that we're gonna transition back into the pavement on both the north and south side of the bridge.
You know, sorry, Rick, until you're done,
No,
I was gonna, but kind of ponying on what you're saying, one thing that came up in the open house last night is that, you know, we have these gaps, right? These little gaps in the multimodal network. And like there's a little gap up in the View Ridge, you know, just behind my urban forest. And it's just such a little gap. It's like, God, if we filled that, they'd be cruising all the way from Rydell, you know, clear down. And you know, somebody brought up, why couldn't the road crew do it?
That would be TBD money. How much TBD money do we have?
I don't know. But anyway, I would just want to throw it out there. We're struggling with these connector money. We're struggling with how do people get onto the, you know, bridge or off of the bridge easily and safely. And so just
Yeah.
little sections.
Yes.
But, you know, I was just thinking about how on the, you know, this new wide 12-foot, at the top of the bridge, you hit Claire and Callahan, and that doesn't seem to be this best transition. Then I started thinking, my guess is that those two exits, which seem like a lot for that neighborhood, are probably because of the emergency room that used to be at Harrison.
Exactly.
And maybe there's an option to take a look at that. Maybe
Yeah.
Claire, or let's see which one's what, Claire, maybe Claire gets turned into a cul-de-sac that you come up the hill and you end, and then it gives us some more pedestrian
I
space.
think they're all
There's-
looking at that around,
also-
because that's Harrison Heights.
There was a lot of
Yeah.
conversation about just throwing it over to Juniper. Instead, is it Juniper or Jupiter? Juniper, okay. Because then that takes everybody down to Lebo where we have nice bike routes and then
Yeah.
go around
Anyways,
on
yeah.
less traveled roads. Because nobody's gonna want to ride their bike on Wheaton Way, right? Everybody's getting off.
And then once this bridge is in.
And maybe they could connect
Not
the
on-
main road.
Yeah, I mean, there's
Exactly.
connections, well, they can
Which
by taking the side, so.
With them.
streets now.
Yeah, that's how you know
It's
it's.
exciting.
Are there
Jen. I'm glad we're here.
Yeah.
It's named after a tree.
Yeah, thank you for your work.
So how do we want to treat this?
Consent.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Perhaps this will be one of your last times having to brief us on the Warren Avenue Bridge.
Oh, no, he's got-
Oh, I doubt that.
Well,
Next.
just a pious wish.
I'd like to welcome Project Manager Katie Kitterer here to present item A4. Resolution declaring intention to establish a pedestrian model at Quincy Square.
Good evening.
And this was discussed in,
And it's just a second to get my share screen up here. All right. So I'm here to talk about Quincy Square and about potentially designating it as a pedestrian mall. So through the course of this presentation, I'll review some of the background, some of the feedback that we've had, how operations have been going. We'll talk about the legal framework and like how we go about this type of action, and then make a recommendation and talk about next steps. So Quincy Square opened July 12th, 2025. Since that time, the city has had a temporary program in place where we have tried to simplify event management by having closures on the weekends. That's been like Friday, sometime on Friday through Monday morning. And then the space was also closed this summer through July 19th for the fan zone. We held a public meeting in December of 2025 to get some feedback from community and business owners on, how things were going, how the weekend closures were going, what the community wanted to see for the future of Quincy Square and where to go next. So we're bringing this forward because we would like to see a transition now from this kind of temporary program that we've been going off of to a more permanent program. So there is a legal framework for street closures. It's governed by RCW. There's two different ways that you could do it. One is an RCW that allows for street closures if there's a public safety nexus. Like the road has fallen apart and we're not going to replace it or something like that. Quincy Square does not really fit into that, right? Like we just redid it. It's beautiful. It's not crumbling away. The other RCW outlines a process to establish the street as a pedestrian mall. So under that RCW, we need to do a traffic study to study the impact of the road closure. And we've done that. We'll talk about it here in a moment. We need to consider access to businesses, parking, that kind of thing. We need to, and then actually to do it, there needs to be a resolution of intent, which is the item that is before, which is on your agenda now. Then we need to have a public hearing, and then an ordinance. So this action, this resolution of intent, is just the first step. It will not designate Quincy Square as a pedestrian at this point. Okay, so a little bit about what we've heard about Quincy Square. At our December meeting and since then, there's been pretty strong community support for closing it fully. People like the idea of Quincy Square being that pedestrian zone where any time of day, like there's, it's free flowing, you can walk across, and it's just like extra open space in downtown. But some folks in the community did have some parking concerns, especially around ADA access for some of the like the history museum and things like that. And there's some personal safety concerns for times when if the street is closed, but there's not a ton going on, that it might actually feel like, there's not enough eyes on the street, right? Like there's not enough activity going on. From the 4th Street businesses, we've heard general support for events on Quincy Square. We've heard more concerns about parking and delivery concerns, like when can drop-offs be, concerns about needing to park close in weather because folks are like, bringing plans into a business or things like that. And then also just kind of on the operational side, when Quincy Square is closed, we tend to get a lot of people who need to turn around at the Fairfield because they turn down Fourth and then realize it's closed, and then need to do a little turnaround, which we designed for, but it's still, it's still a little bit of a bottleneck right there. From the operations side, from our folks who need to manage this, there's a desire to have a consistent schedule, and because opening and closing it, especially on the weekend, when we don't have regular staff available, is difficult and could really rack up some overtime costs. So that was one of our considerations as well. What are the goals for Quincy Square? One, we want to make sure that it is, it's safe. It's safe for people all the time. So, there's a pedestrian safety perspective of there being a separation between cars and people, as well as that personal safety perspective of making sure that there's enough eyes on the street to make it feel safe, no matter what time of day it is. We want it to be operationally sustainable so that the city can manage the closures, the permitting, the vents, all of that. And then we want it to be beneficial for the community and for businesses. So there's balance there. So considering that balance, considering what we heard from the community, and from the business community, the folks who have businesses on 4th Street, what we're recommending right now is that we utilize the pedestrian mall framework, because under that framework, the road can be open sometimes and it can be closed sometimes based on our operational needs, and it allows for a seasonal schedule, and it allows for delivery openings. So this gives us a little bit more flexibility now, and in the future. It would give us an opportunity potentially to grow into a full closure in the future, since that activity really is key to making the square feel safe. Maybe we're not there in 2027, but maybe a few years down the road, there's a lot more going on, more density in downtown, and it feels like there's a lot going on. Existing businesses, they need time as well. And new businesses possibly could come in and, change the flavor of Quincy Square in the future. So we're also, at the same time, this is separate from this conversation, but I did want to mention that we are exploring ways to streamline the event permitting, and we have been temporarily exempting some of the small size events from special event permits. So we're looking at whether we should extend or expand that program. Of course, we're exploring parking replacements as well. There's 14 parallel parking spaces on Quincy Square with free. It's actually load unload zone right now, but we're changing it back to the 2-hour parking. So we would continue with the 2-hour free parking when Quincy Square is open. And then we have, since construction, been offering free 2-hour parking for a limited number of spaces in the Washington Avenue garage, to kind of offset that loss of free parking. And then there's also other ways that we can look at mitigating parking loss. Continue to do that. The proposed closure schedule, like I said, this is kind of a mix of what the community is going towards, like a full closure all the time. What we're proposing is more of like a seasonal closure. So it would be closed in the high summer, Memorial Day to Labor Day, except for regular delivery times. We would have weekend closures for like the later spring, early fall time period. And then throughout the whole year, it would be closed on First Friday weekends. There would be a holiday closure from Thanksgiving to New Year when we have Christmas tree out and, you know, Winterfest and Krampus and like, we got a bunch of stuff loaded in there. And then there's also, additional event closures as permitted for things like St. Patrick's Day parade, that kind of thing. Operation wise, we now, like I said, we now have the parking as load unload only. We kind of tried that out. It had some side effects, some different side effects that we didn't foresee. So we think we're going to go back to the 2-hour parking.
Side effect.
Well, it was confusing for folks because they, there's like, it looks like there's parking available there, and it was signed as load unload, but people just weren't seeing that. So we're getting a lot of people who are ticketing.
There's like one sign as you enter Quincy Square.
Oh, they weren't.
There's no signs on the street where people typically look.
Well, there are, but it's still hard to see them. Like,
or at the beginning, I don't think there were.
It was, there was a little bit of a gap before we got all the signs out. And then also we ran into an issue where if somebody has a service van, typically we can provide a permit for somebody who legitimately needs to park on the street in our 2-hour parking because they're working on a building or something, and InPark can do that. But the way we have our policies written is that can't be in a load unload zone. So and we didn't realize that little nuance.
And
so
Park was
yeah, they were
the policy.
they were very good about that. So we discussed it, and with the feedback that we got, we decided 2-hour parking let's go back to the 2-hour parking. Let's see. So one thing that we've done is we did this during fan zone, and we can continue it is so mapping apps like Google and Waze and Apple Maps, they can show it as 4th Street is closed. So that's a designation that will hopefully help people with the turnarounds on 4th Street. So we don't have, a map application sending folks down a street that's destined to close. And then we have folks on Quincy Square, police, fire, DBA, the Roxy, parks, public works, they all have keys to those bollards. So if there's a need for people to use the street, a special delivery, an emergency, there is a way to access that. This next page, if I can, I'm sure I can in this screen. This is added to from your presentation that we sent out, but it's just a map, just a graphic that shows the calendar, because I think sometimes it's easier to look at it visually than it is to listen to all the different dates. But you can see like the orange ones are all closures. The red ones are closures too. That was just the highlighted holiday closures. And then the blue are event closures that like we know may happen, but are kind of outside of like our typical. So I've got Trick or Treat Street closure on there. I've got
Armed Forces Festival.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So, and this is the calendar year of 2027. So of course it would change a little bit year to year, but that's the basic. Okay, so this slide kind of addresses some information from the engineering study. Traffic diversion, the study found that closure on Quincy Square would divert folks westbound 4th Street, that would divert the westbound 4th Street. Most vehicles are going to go to Burwell. A small amount are going to go to 6th Street. The impacts that has on circulation is really pretty insignificant. I mean, I think the additional delay was like less than a second for any of the intersections. So really, really low impact in terms of traffic circulation. And then parking loss, we would lose the 14 parallel parking spaces that would not be available when Quincy Square is closed. But again, we would have some, open time as well. I just wanted to take a chance to go over, who is on 4th. How many businesses do we have on 4th? And this list is fairly comprehensive of all of the businesses who have like storefronts on 4th, but the Hess building, they have like 30 tenants. They've got artists, they've got lawyers, they've got unions, they've got photographers, counselors,
My massage
therapists. There's a ton of stuff going on in the Hess building. And then the YMCA is teaming up with the shipyard. They have a daycare under development there in the center of the square, along with all of the other partners that we've had in this project.
Katie, can you I've always been interested in this ever since I heard, I love daycare, I love it being downtown. Why does it have to be on Quincy Square? I mean, what does daycare have to do with Quincy Square? Anyway, I don't know, Mayor, could you find out about that?
It's because the Bremer Trust owned the building.
Oh,
And I would
And that's
also
what they
take
sold it.
PSNS off of that. It's not limited. There's a lot of demand for childcare.
Sure.
downtown.
But that's why the grant was
I can-
written, was to supply.
Southwest.
oh, okay,
He sits on the advisory board for the Y.
that's true. Okay, there's the answer. Thank you.
But there is, we haven't gotten to that, I guess, but I'll hold till she finishes.
Beneficial impacts, there's a lot of benefits to having pedestrian malls, pedestrian only zones in cities. You can get higher foot traffic, folks linger longer. There's no cars and people mixing. It's a community gathering space. You get this connection. You get a vibrant downtown. It's that third place. It can be a tourist attraction. There are also some adverse impacts potentially. There's a perception of difficult parking, which can turn certain people off to coming downtown. There will be more limited delivery times. People will have to kind of rearrange their schedules if they want to have door-to-door delivery. There are access issues, mostly for those businesses that don't benefit from the higher foot traffic. Like retail, restaurants, those kinds of things can really benefit from the higher foot traffic. Some of the more professional appointment-based businesses that aren't retail focused don't directly benefit from the higher foot traffic. And so it can feel like there's access issues for them. And then, potentially if there's times when there is low activity, that can be the kind of the opposite safety side to the no cars and people mixing. And then you don't have enough eyes on the street. So this is my last slide. Next steps would be the council to adopt a resolution expressing the city's intent to designate Quincy Square as a pedestrian mall. This puts on paper the extent of the traffic closures. The resolution in your packet really like outlines that very specifically. Then to officially designate Quincy Square as a pedestrian mall, we would draft an ordinance and schedule a public hearing for council consideration. Going forward past that, and kind of along with that, exploring options to streamline events, potential changes to special event permit. That would go through public safety committee first, and kind of would be separate. And then actively manage operations, continue to evaluate parking strategies. We may need to reevaluate the closure schedule as things evolve, potentially like change around delivery times, that kind of thing. So those would all be things that we would continue to square. So that is the end of my presentation. I'm happy to answer questions.
Okay, who wants to start with questions? Go ahead, Rick.
So my concern is the YMCA, yes, the building is the Bremer Trust. And I actually did call them and ask them if they've been consulted on this. I talked to the president and the answer was no, because that's who owns those two buildings. And then the YMCA, they had not been consulted either, the individual working on the childcare center. And it is not confined, I mean, this PSNS, but the research that was done is that there's a large concentration of people downtown that need childcare. There's people in this building, the city employees.
Sure.
The workforce housing that we're promoting for downtown. I mean, it's part of, it seems to me it's part of the puzzle to put together to, grocery store would be the other one, but putting that puzzle together where there's services for people living and working downtown. I believe this is premature, and that until July, they're supposed to get their funding by December, $6.2 million. They haven't worked out their drop-off plan yet. And until they get that kind of worked out, I believe this is premature to do this. There's no hurry. I mean, go back a couple slides. Can you?
Do you want to see the calendar?
No. I want to see. I've driven through Quincy Square 3 times this week, and the one that shows the vacant street.
Sorry.
That's what Quincy Square looks like right now. And so what we think, I mean, closing it all summer during the weekday, I mean, the childcare center, in addition to the other business down there, will bring activity to Quincy Square during the day. It won't interfere with nighttime events. It will bring activity during the day. The parents coming and going, there will be a lot of benefit that brings to downtown associated with that. There's no hurry. I mean, you're getting what we need out of Quincy Square now by doing periodic closures. Putting something like that puts it on the screen to close it all summer almost preempts the ability of the childcare center decides that's where they're going to do their drop-off. Or any other option is to drop them off on Pacific and walk to it, or in the alley. And I'm not an expert. I'm not speaking for them. Please don't. I'm just thinking.
It's a good point to bring up.
Yeah. So, and it is a Bremer Trust, and then it's the Hess building, what we call the 4th Street building. Ron Shear owns that.
Yeah, Ron owns it.
Okay. So,
There are a lot of people there.
Yeah.
Anna, did you want to go next, or?
I'd like to hear from Michael because he has the most direct experience at Quincy Square, so I'm just waiting for that.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I didn't. Go ahead.
So just on what Rick says, I mean, unless they sort of speak up in this, is there a lease side? I mean, but I also don't think it's an issue, because what you do is you have parents with flags that open the gate, let parents come in, drop off their kids, and then they shut the bollards, and then the day happens, and then they do it again in the afternoon if they need to. Or they could come up with a way to use, I think, the alley behind, which might even be the safest option.
If I could just add, I had not spoken directly with the YMCA, but I had spoken with some folks from Sound West Group about it, and they said that they've been well aware of these plans. Are on my email list, so they have gotten all the notifications on this. And they had said that their current hopes are to have the drop off in the alley, so the drop off zone in the alley. So I think they're making plans based on what our plans are.
I think I'm like disappointed because I would have supported a pedestrian mall from day one.
Yeah. Yep.
And there was people who fought that. Well, now there's people who are fighting what we did. And I just sometimes feel like let's like winter them and summer them. You know, let's have a few seasons and kind of do our best with it. I would also like to really have the list of 4th Street businesses have a sit down and really talk about things. And, you know, it said community and businesses, but there's a lot, you know, like, what do you think you're doing that's helping my business or my neighbor's business? I just like to have that conversation. Maybe I'm not thinking of something. Obviously, the street's going to be available for access because we're going to need things like, I mean, I got somebody working on that neon sign way more than I ever thought I would.
Yeah.
I am a little concerned about it becoming a skateboard.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The furniture is all damaged.
Yeah.
Every piece of furniture is damaged. I've had them repair one of the drums because the drum got knocked off its base and stuff like that.
Huh.
So, you know, I'm a little concerned, at least when a car goes 70 miles an hour down there, skateboarders maybe stay out of the street. An idea I have, regardless of how this goes, would be at the Washington end of the street, a sign that says something to the effect of, you know, local traffic only. Like if you're not needing to go down this street, go around anyways. And that would set people up.
A lot of people think that means if you're local, you can go down the street. I've had that problem
So-
putting that sign out, so.
So back to like, you know, so we built a road, we put stormwater in, we put all the things in that you need to do for that, which I guess we would have to bring vehicles down, but we also built parking spaces. Again, I've learned the parking spaces are thicker concrete, things like that. So I'd really like to, so what I don't like about closing it is when it's pouring rain and there's nothing going on for a week in the winter. And people are having to park
And walking
and
around.
walk. And it's just kind of sad that it's not brought to life. And I don't know what the solution is for that. One idea I've had for the parking spaces, if we make this predominantly a pedestrian mall, and maybe it would have to be managed by somebody else because it doesn't really seem to be our business, but some cities have done these sort of like kiosks. Maybe they're like small like shipping container kind of things, and we would put them in a couple parking spaces.
Like pavilions?
Well, no, more like just like a pop-up shop. You'd come in, there's a door and there's a thing that opens and you sell your wares and you could rent them. You know, again, probably somebody like DBA would be well suited for that, but there could be some options for that. You know, it's a great asset. Did we get it perfect? Maybe not. And again, I've been going back to like the sort of the wet rain, winter, long block to walk. Like, I don't know if there's a way to come up with some program or incentive that if businesses could put awnings on it. It's very hot on that street, we learned. You know, the sun just comes right down 4th Street and it just lingers in the sky there on our summer. You know, we have these great late summers. So, you know, or if there's a way to put some other shade sails up or things like that. Again, it'd be nice if they were shade, but also could be even resting spots spots for while it's raining or places to go. It's interesting. I have a camera under the marquee of the Roxy, and you see people come down the street and then they like go in and they come back out and because they're just trying to, stay. So I don't think, I don't have strong feelings either way. I could say like, again, back to the winterim and summerim a little bit, and I don't think it's an issue that we need to wait. I don't think anything that we would do here would make it an issue to have children dropped off. My concerns are more like, are we doing things to make it more successful? I saw an interesting clip, I think it was today, that they were basically saying, why don't cities design spaces like casinos? Casinos design spaces that you never leave, like you stay there and they do things to keep you there, and it's like a different way of thinking.
I don't know, rum and cokes at the Roxy now.
We could do that. So anyways, I think the area also may need some tweaking. I just would like that to be part of a bigger conversation of, again, some of this furniture I think needs to possibly be swapped out and things like that, or bolted down. So I don't know. That's all I have, I think, for right now. Thanks.
Okay, next. Go ahead, Donna.
Thanks. Maybe we could get some decommissioned tanks for people to sit on. Those might,
Like army tanks or like tanks of water?
army tanks.
Oh.
Yeah, I think that those would be not too badly hit by skateboarders. I had often when we've gone around and around on this, there's been a question about waste management. So I was wondering because waste management apparently cannot go through the alleys because their equipment has to, to reach far back and,
Yeah.
and get in up there. So how's that been resolved with waste management?
With waste, we moved, so it's working fine as far as there's a couple of dumpsters that get serviced from like the closure end. And I haven't heard any, concerns about how that's working. We had some big belly trash cans, and we just kind of relocated those to the edges so that they could be regularly serviced.
Okay, great.
Just business garbage isn't picked up on the street, with the exception of maybe the flats. Like they go through the alley and pick up mine.
Okay, so they've been able to figure that out.
Dumpster, yeah, and then the totes I just take down to the street.
Okay.
Every other week.
Great. And then my second question is, the alleys, how many of these businesses, I know several of them have doors that open onto the alleys for exactly, in the past for deliveries, for fire safety, for all of this. Are there any businesses that lack an opening onto the alley?
I can't think of any off the top of my head. I would want to double check before I speak to that 100%. I would say that I do know that it's not convenient access for all of them. Like it's not, the history museum, like there's a little set of stairs. And so it's really not convenient for them for pickups and drop-offs and things like that. They use it when they can, if it's something small, but it's not great for them. So even if everybody does have a back door, it's not necessarily the best option for them. And there's some larger deliveries that wouldn't be able to access the alley that definitely do need to have some delivery access.
Right, like if you're working on a neon sign, for example, that couldn't come through the alley door, I get that. I'm totally in favor of this. I wish we could move faster. I think that it's less confusing for the community if 4th Street is closed all the time. Then it's like, okay, they get it. But if this is the way people want to go, that's great. I think the success of Quincy Square is engendering more success, and I look forward to its eventual, complete pedestrian mall street, every day of the year as being a real hub and revitalization spark for downtown Bremerton.
Next.
Love it. I agree with Anna. Wish we could just close the whole thing down, make it real, make the vision come true, energize it, kind of like that build. But I understand, change. We got to do it, gradually. And if anybody from the YMCA and Southwest is listening in on this study session, I think it would make it a lot more palatable. I love childcare, don't get me wrong, but at a certain point, Quincy Square is going to be full of Quincy Square type of businesses. And childcare, yes, childcare, may not fit. However, if there was a children's museum as part of that childcare center, I'd be all for it. Oh, is there going to be?
Not quite like that, but the Black History Museum
Yeah.
is part of the vision.
Oh, that's
Of the
cool.
Music Discovery Center.
That's cool.
So, I don't want to speak for the group, but I've been in multiple meetings where we convened all the stakeholders.
Yeah.
And and again, they can speak for themselves, but a secure Quincy Square where it's fairly safe.
Yeah.
You can imagine if there's some music performance opportunity, teaching the kids about music.
It's great.
About different types of things that they can do in performing arts. It's been seen as a positive and benefit. I've heard no negative about this plan from that group.
It's great. I just know Children's Museum was trying to get started here.
Yeah, they actually presented yesterday to the DBA.
That's great.
And a friend of mine who used to run the Cambridge Island Kitty Mew
Yeah.
is kind of consulting.
I would love to see that take hold. Okay. Thanks, Katie.
Anybody else? I think it's Christy. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm a little bit torn with this because I understand what Rick's talking about, that it's premature at this point, even with the closure, because I've been down there every day last week from 3 to 5 o'clock. Every Monday through Friday, I was down there and it was dead. The businesses weren't open. There was nothing happening down there. And I had a little close call that was 100% my fault. I thought the road was closed and I wasn't paying attention and went from one side to the other because there isn't like a curb or anything over there. And so I wasn't paying attention and turned around and walked right in front of a car that I am so thankful that they were able to stop. But it was the closest I've ever come to getting hit by a car. 100% my fault. This person was just driving down, but there is no consistency to it. I thought it was closed all summer long. It was a Thursday evening, so I was not really paying attention. Again, all my fault. However, wouldn't have been nice to hit my car, even though it's my fault. And I don't see any consistency with the calendar that was presented the way that it was. It's this month is full, this month is full, this one's got some sprinkles in there, this one's got some sprinkles. So that becomes difficult when we're talking about wanting consistency with that, and having a very personal feeling of consistency would have, like, thank God that driver. Whoever you are, I appreciate you.
Yeah.
But, additionally, while I don't see a need to just shut it down, I'm inclined to look at that because I feel like with Quincy Square, we're also setting a vibe because we're only in control of the street. We can't control the businesses around it. And so, we have created a space that I think all of us have a general interest in becoming this kind of part of the community and a gathering space and all of these things. And you can't do that when you're not sure if there's traffic coming in and out or there's things. So unfortunately, I think there's going to have to be a point that we just decide, okay, we're all in and we're going to set the tone. We're going to set the vibe for this. And then hopefully the businesses around come and start to gather to the tone that we're setting. I am rather concerned because I don't know of a tone that I can grab a slice and you're not supposed to watch other people's children. So like you're just sitting there in Quincy Square looking at a daycare. Like it's not, I'm wondering what that vibe is. And that's where I'm like, we're at this tipping point right now that I think if we do, we can create something really good in the city. But we need to be all in. And that schedule doesn't allow us to be all in because we also can't utilize the real estate that we have there. We can't make it as friendly because we need to have the ability for cars to come in and out. So we can't have hardscaping that becomes friendly, that becomes the, sanctuary out of the bad weather and things like that, because we need to have cars coming through. So it's like half in, half out when we're doing this. And then, yes, it was, if we are setting some sort of tone or vibe in this, I'm not 100% sure what that tone is based on the businesses that we have down there, which I'm not looking at changing anybody who's down there, or the businesses we're attracting. And is that because as a city, we're not all in? If we were all in and we made it a fun and vibrant space, I think that those businesses would come to it. So that's my concern, and I'm really on the fence. I think it needs to be all in, or having this modified cars coming through, and then you can't be all in. So it just becomes what it is.
Jennifer, did you have questions for the first round?
I don't, thank you.
I have some questions. The turnaround by the Fairfield Inn, it's not safe. Is there a way that we can redesign that end and make it so that it's safer for vehicles that come up the road when they shouldn't?
I think we would really, I don't know what feels unsafe about it.
You have it on the slide.
You have it on.
I mean, there's a perception of it being a bottleneck there. But I don't think that I wouldn't say that it's necessarily unsafe. I mean, it was designed to allow for turnarounds.
It's just clunky, I think.
Yeah, it's just clunky.
People can,
Yeah,
everyone
safety is not
figures
there.
it out a different way, I think, is what we feel
Okay.
unsafe.
I agree that everything should be figured out before we move forward. The Hess building, they're losing tenants like crazy because they're therapists, there's doctors. We've given, frankly, shipyard workers 24/7 passes in the Washington Street garage, where I think by changing the parking downtown to 3-hour parking and no reparking, that will free up a whole lot more spaces. Or we have to eliminate some of the 24, 7-day-a-week parking passes so that the businesses that are down there actually can direct their clients where to park, because it's a big problem for them. And I think that needs to be done before we move forward. I'm also really concerned, hopefully it was just because of FIFA, but the overflow of here we have Quincy Square, so let's close down Pacific too. Pacific's been closed down a lot this year. I'm also concerned about who's paying to activate, because frankly, when this whole thing was being discussed, the whole project, I never heard the terms activation managing, that the city was going to be paying for it. We've got other business communities that they don't get any cash from us to manage their events or manage their business areas. And it feels like we're doing a lot down here. And but I think the parking has got to be figured out. Some major change in parking downtown. I mean, this park on one street for 2 hours, and then you have to move to another block. I mean, it's just people out there moving their cars all day. And we just made it 3-hour parking only. That's it. That's all you get for free parking downtown. Go to a parking garage afterwards. But I think that needs to be fixed first. Do you know, are the bathrooms open for public use at the Washington Street garage yet?
I don't know the answer to that question. I'm sorry.
Yes.
We launched that.
Yeah,
They are,
like literally within a couple of,
like a week or two.
it was, if not today, it was yesterday,
Okay, because
tomorrow.
I've heard concerns about that. I also have concerns with how Quincy Square being managed or set up during events. You know, when I was down at Krampus, it was really uncomfortable because you have way too many booths and no place for people to really walk. They're squeezed in. There was all these bottlenecks. So whoever at some point, I guess the city's going to have to pay somebody to manage it or get a staff member. And I don't know where that money's coming from. And right now it looks like Public Works is having to pay for a lot of the management of this. I mean, I thought it was going to be like a park. You want to rent the stage, okay, get a permit from the Parks Department to rent the stage. And if you're going to have a whole lot of people, then you get a special events permit. But this, you know, having to park food trucks on it when there's restaurants, I don't get it. You know, it just, yeah, it's helping some businesses. It's not helping everybody. And then the thing too about construction impacts, because I know that for them to remodel that building, I don't think they can do it all from the alley, and that's going to be a huge project that's going to take a long time. So I want to make sure that
The Hess building?
no, the Bremer building where they're putting in the daycare.
Yeah.
And I didn't mean to imply it was just for shipyard workers, but they got a federal grant to help
Yeah, ties in already.
So, but that's not like bringing in the sign guy to fix your sign. It's like a year. There's gonna be construction going on. I mean, at least the sidewalk.
How
So,
many, how
but-
many people are parking on 24/7 passes in the Washington Avenue garage?
Heard about that.
oh,
'Cause I've
yeah.
never heard of, I didn't know this.
No, when I talked to, our former parking manager, she said there was quite a few.
Yep, absolutely. Garage, that would be,
No, are there, do we give the shipyard passes to park it?
Well, not, it's people who work at the shipyard have bought monthly passes.
Oh, well, anybody
So
can buy a monthly
there's
pass.
quite a few, but what I'm saying is there's not enough spaces for the businesses, especially out of the Hess building, because that is a lot of people coming in and out. So that's something I think before we move forward, we have to figure out a better way to support parking. And I'm also worried about having it closed during the winter. I mean, to me, it makes sense in the summer months, but maybe a weekend here, first Friday,
Well, that's
Close it
exactly
down.
what this proposal
but I
is.
mean, just for the night, and that's it. You know, nobody's gonna go hang out there Sunday
Right.
in January when
From the
it's
beginning,
raining.
I said 5 o'clock on Friday to 5 a.m. on Monday.
that's what we have.
Oh, we were doing, I thought we were doing Thursday.
See?
I thought it
This
was
is what-
noon, Friday at noon. Does anybody know what the schedule is? Right
It's
now?
like- It's like Friday at noon, when we have the food, there's the food truck Friday.
And then Wednesdays when they have a movie.
And Mondays.
Well, but that's over.
Yeah.
That is over. That was for the summertime. So that's not continuing on through the fall.
Well,
the Monday and
so my main concerns are parking and where in the budget are we gonna pay to manage?
The tourism.
Lodging tax, you can't give it at all for that because those people aren't getting hotel rooms, Michael.
Oh.
A portion could be used.
Get a room.
Lodging. Well, that's what pays for
Basic.
lodging tax, is hotel rooms. Round two,
No.
okay.
So your comment about what are the hours, this resolution or intent says noon on Friday till 7 a.m. on Monday, which is not what it is today. So that
Pretty
needs,
close.
that needs to be adjusted. And I just think, as I said before, I'd rather table this for at a later date, bring it back up once we have a little more information. Some of the issues you brought up, some of reaching out to some of the individuals that have plans and maybe we're not aware of them specifically. So that's my round two. Thank you.
Okay.
There's been a lot of community work, I know, on this for years. You've met with, the businesses on Fourth. I mean, I think it's been going on now for a long time. And trying to manage those individual concerns is troublesome, I know.
Can't win. You can't win.
No,
Everybody.
you can't please everybody. And but I do think that there was initially a vision, for this space. And we just need to keep that vision in mind and make decisions that advance us to that. And I think that ultimately it's a closed space. It's an event space. I mean, that was always kind of the ultimate vision. So we're trying to, anytime I ever heard about Quincy Square, it was a event space, a community gathering space, safe. I always saw tables set up in the middle of the streets and no curbs and everything. And despite popular opinion, I wasn't on any kind of inside group or anything about that. I just paid attention, and I happen to be a member of the chamber. So yeah, I don't agree. If West Larson needs more time for the Child Development Center, then let them call up City Council. And I don't think Katie's been talking to people, and they're saying drop-off's going to be in the alley. That's what staff are for. They're going to figure all those things out. I would really appreciate, because we didn't get it with Quincy Square the first time, what is the operational plan? Because I think we threw money at an organization and they ran with it. But was it really the intent? I don't know. So let's get solid what the vision of this space is, how we're going to operate it, and I know it gets dicey around funding and who's going to do it. Is it going to be DBA? And we all have feelings about that. And, I don't envy you, this process. I kind of see this as that first little step before we start really talking about budget, because budget is looming. And I'm going to be looking what she just asked. How are we paying for this? It better be in the budget, because if it's not in the budget, there's no January request to council. Oh, we forgot to put in the operations for this, because that's what happened. So let's get it in the budget. Let's make sure we're all clear with it. And I think you've heard a lot from us about whether it should be permanently closed, temporarily closed. Rick would like to see it kind of, push the pause button on for a little bit. What would be your pushback against pushing the pause button?
Well, my pushback on pausing it is that without a plan on when it's going to be closed, it's more difficult to plan for what happens next year. To get that operational plan off the ground, and to understand like what are our boundaries? What boundaries are we going to put on and what do we want to see there? So and by I know it's not necessarily a consistent schedule for the person who walks down the street on Quincy Square, but establishing this and having that calendar, it does provide some consistency for the businesses so that they know what to expect, and when things will be closed, when they'll be open. So that's my
If I can add, we were talking about savings and agree with everything. We were going to have a lot of debrief conversations starting in September, but what Katie was saying is if we get consistency, that allows us to potentially do an exempt and streamline a permit process where we're not having to visit every time somebody requests that road to be closed, which is a full-on permit. it's closed at these times, then we can streamline it. We don't have to get into traffic circulation, access, road closure stuff, and then it gets cheaper. So
It's great.
Michael, you haven't had a round two yet?
I have not, and I'm getting ready for 3. I just wanted to kind of clarify, because I feel like what you're asking is the pedestrian designation allows us to legally close the street more frequently. It's not what we're talking about is kind of saying that we're probably moving in that direction,
Yeah.
but it's more just saying that this is a mixed use hybrid pedestrian mall and street, right?
Taking a step in that direction.
But you're not gonna like permanently close it then in 3 days.
Right, we would need
coming
to come
for
back
you.
to council
Okay.
to do that. That's why the resolution is so specific on these are our intents for when it's gonna be closed. And there is a little bit of, legal room for the public works director to, close or open it if we need it. But, yeah, like a change to that schedule.
I mean, you gave me a key, so come on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You control that.
It's open, right, okay. So, the Roxy is the key. I don't have a key.
I can get you a key.
Oh. Key to the city. All right.
Into a city facility, way to go.
Kind of, Denise had talked about vision too, and I definitely felt like, we were talking about like sidewalk cafes and buskers and maybe, restaurants and stuff. And now we've got union halls and daycare centers and actually somebody said, but we can't like zone against that, but can we?
No.
Yeah.
And
Like, is there a way to know? Like, is there a way to kind
Only
of have
fun activities.
like an entertainment district? Is there something that could be done?
this is a no vote already.
Well, I'm just asking a legal question. But is that? Okay, I have something to go to the owner. Okay,
Well, we're not done.
thank you. So
Still got another item on the.
it's okay.
Go through the process.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I just, somebody asked me, like, can we do it? I'm like, well, I don't know. Like, I know there's like, but anyways, there's lots of things that are constitutional kind of stuff. Okay. So one of the things I think for Roxy, for my neighbors and stuff is, can we come up with something that is value to the property owners, to do this? You say that we want to support businesses, but how does it? And this was a great summer. It was great to see community out there. I loved seeing the community, especially for the bigger FIFA games and things like that. But they were giving away free popcorn. They were showing movies. They were doing music. They've done music so loud that I can't show a movie. Like I was told there was going to be a busker stage, and then they keep trying to make that stage as big as possible. I think we need some things that sort of right size events for the street.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
bigger things might need to be on the boardwalk.
Yeah.
They've done great down there.
Yep.
And I think that, to be honest, I think that TV down on the boardwalk with the stairs and people could watch and things like that could.
That's where it was going to be.
I realize that too. You want to add to that on my rant?
no, it's not a rant. It's
So-
exactly what we are gonna look at internally, because it takes resources.
Yeah.
and Funding to do this.
Yeah.
And what is the scale that we wanna do this, now that we've had this year under our belt,
Yeah.
what scale do we want? I think right now what we're requesting is, do we believe community gathering place is important? That's the fundamental question, and then we can scale up from there.
Or down.
This small
Yeah.
busking all the way to, this will be administration working with city council. Yes, absolutely.
And I'd love us to do some sort of like walkthrough, like what's really working. What did we get wrong? What did we get on the list of possible things? If there's funding found that we could.
Gap funding.
Yeah. So anyways, I really support all of this, but it's been tough to have, a hot dog vendor right outside
Yeah.
my brand new $70,000 renovated Roxyette where we're selling hot dogs. And,
Yes. Agreed.
Yep.
May I say just one
it
thing?
was not financially a good summer for us. We were very busy.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
I would like to see more local, community-oriented performances like Bremerton High School Choir, Black Student Union, things like that. I'm not as interested, no offense to big MXPX shows as I am to local, small, I mean, once in a while a big thing, but I appreciate what Michael said about it conflicting.
Yes, exactly. Carmen, did you?
The Lantern Festival,
Yeah.
The Merry Festival.
love it.
Michael, how was the music on Mondays? Was that,
It was,
because that's kind of like the scale, I think.
I really loved it, but it was definitely hit or miss.
Mhm.
I heard the last one, which I wasn't able to go to, was bigger.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it
but-
needs to like gain
Yeah,
momentum a little bit, but
The
like
issue
that was
is
super local.
sort of it, and Jack Parker did a great job, but it's like an open mic night. So
Mhm.
it's not like you're going to see somebody, and then there's not seating and it's hot and the sun bears down. So
And that's the part where we set up our streamlined exemption, and we know it's closed, we can build protection.
and I think that could have been every Friday night, and it could have been on Art Walk, and it could have been on a regular part of a closure. So we don't need to add a Monday. Although I preferred that over than opening Tuesday, closing Wednesday, opening Thursday, closing Friday or Friday night.
Yeah.
Okay, Anna's had her hand up for a while.
It's okay. Jennifer, you're done?
She called it.
Fair enough. So the small housekeeping type thing is, it seems like since we own Washington Avenue Garage, we can say if you have a monthly pass, you got to park on the top floors and leave the bottom floors open for people who are coming and going. And I think that would be really
That would
helpful.
help.
The larger issue is that we often talk about how we can encourage economic development in the centers or in downtown or in other areas, but we don't really have any mechanism to do that. So we end up spending a lot of time talking about it, and then coming to the conclusion that there's really nothing we can do. In other cities and in other countries, for example, certain occupations and businesses are protected, like shoe repair. Just basic things that people need. That would involve changing zoning, but there's really no precedent for us. And I'm not saying we shouldn't develop one, but we have no history of how to go about encouraging economic development other than giving 50 grand a year to kids up economic development. So the people who are deeply interested in this, should follow up on it. I'm interested in it, but that's not my area of expertise.
Mhm.
Yeah. So we have these conversations frequently,
Mhm.
like what we want, but we don't have any way to make what we want happen. Or we haven't.
Well, I think doing public improvements does. I mean, if that wasn't a shot in the arm to Fourth Street,
Yeah.
then I don't know what is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, give it up. You can't run a business.
Yeah.
Sorry. But
So we weren't doing okay. I just said, if you think that we just raked it in, literally people couldn't get to the business.
Oh, no,
It was so packed on the street.
I realize that. So I do think we do some things, but I think it should be economic development for all businesses. I mean, we went 20 years where every single penny of road repair and utility repair went to downtown. There was nothing done anywhere else, right? And I'm not saying that there still aren't things to do, but we also have Palo Avenue, we have Minette, we have, Jennifer, what are you guys calling that little area where you are? I just hear it
Lebo.
called Lebo.
Lebo Business
Lebo.
District.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So we have other business districts too that we need to support and, I think we need to keep that in mind too when we're figuring out which projects to support that will support businesses.
So where are we with this? Are we generally accepting of this coming from staff?
I'm good with a first step, but I'm not good with doing a resolution until we have a real plan for parking in place.
And a few other things.
Yeah,
And we would need to know though, are you talking about an overall revamp of parking downtown or the 14 displaced spots?
well, I would love to see everything go to 3-hour only, but that might,
Be a big list that we don't currently have on our.
Right.
Then how are you gonna mitigate I think.
Yeah,
answering
mitigation
How you're
of-
gonna mitigate the
so that
loss
would
of
be,
parking.
that would be doing something in the Washington Avenue garage to
Yeah.
make it so that
Easy
like
fit.
the Hess building and some of the other ones where there's a lot of turnover are
We were to give you
assisted.
two solutions
Mhm.
tomorrow, next day, early next week. Potentially other on-street parking revamp, Washington Avenue garage.
Yeah. Just mitigate the loss of parking.
So that's what we're looking.
If I could, I want to point out that we are still mitigating the loss of parking on Quincy Square by allowing free 2-hour parking in the Washington
That's
garage.
true.
According
Like
to
lots
Chuck
of-
Henderson, those parking spots are gone before 9 o'clock. So I don't know if they're getting turned over.
Quincy Square parking spots are often gone before 9 o'clock. Like I think
The
that's
street parking,
the
the
street
Washington,
parking.
I've always found a parking space in Washington.
Yeah, I never park in there. So I don't know what it's like.
Maybe it's not for you actually, but no, I know we have a deal for downtown businesses to get parking in the Washington Avenue garage. But I'm curious if we could look at vacancy in the Fourth and Park Avenue garage. I don't know what we call that garage. The city garage is under Seafoam.
Oh, right,
Because
right, okay.
The lower level is ours, and if there's 10 spaces that are always open there, we could also move 10 employees, probably employees who work on that block.
Mhm.
They could park down there as well. And maybe there's a way that would free up 10 spaces. And the way I do believe the garage works is 1, 2, and 3 are open for
Yeah.
anyone to park. Then 4, 5, and is permitted mostly, and then 6, 7, no, 7, 8, no, so 4, 5, 6 is permits, and then 7, 8, and 9 are mostly the downtown business employees that
Well-
they can get a monthly pass at a discounted rate.
But what I was told, and I don't know, if this is anecdotal,
But I
but
just want to make sure, like, we do things to help
Yeah.
parking.
Yeah.
they claimed that there was over a 4-month wait to get one.
I didn't have to wait that
Okay,
just recently, but
well, maybe somebody moved.
yeah. Or maybe we could open up 5, move 10 and open 5 in the other garage.
Yeah,
But I would be really interested to see what we can do in that Washington parking garage, because, if we are attracting
It's right
businesses
there.
and doing things, we need to think about the fact that those businesses are gonna have employees that are coming, the employees have to park somewhere, and they're gonna have additional customers. So if we can make this a more enticing place for businesses, for customers, for everything, I think that that's a nice place to utilize in doing that. So it may be this floor system that we have, may need to get some reallocation of what those floors look like.
If we can prioritize Quincy Square businesses for a while.
like reducing the number of monthly permits
Mhm.
perhaps.
Like if
Yeah.
floors 1 through 3 aren't cutting it anymore, then we need to look at floor 4. Because how lucky are we that we are expanding and we actually have businesses downtown that are necessitating this? That is an absolute boon for the city. But I think that we do need to make it a lot easier on folks, both the employees that work down there and the customers.
Sad enough for you to work there?
Come on.
Look at her face. Look at her face.
The mayor seems to be confident,
Okay.
or they can, yeah.
Devil will get into details.
Yeah.
I believe we can find 14 spots to make up for the 14 that are
Yeah.
gonna be missed.
I
It's
think
in
that's a good
the
start.
options.
Mhm.
We can get you some options.
Okay.
I know we're removing parking downtown where we completed the Washington Avenue Boulevard. We removed 10 spots.
Yeah,
We are looking at 11th Street revamp. We're looking at removing more parking.
yeah.
So I don't want to be conflicting with our direction. We're trying to promote a access downtown that's public, either public transit or cycling or just different ways, to get down here. And so,
Yeah, well, I mean,
You're on the transit board too.
Washington's great because
That's, I mean,
sidewalks now from Evergreen to downtown are great.
it's exactly.
And if we get some bike lanes put in, maybe we don't need as many cars.
It will happen. It
What?
really will happen.
Like you could start parking.
It will
okay.
happen.
Is there any other discussion on this item?
Do you need anything else from us, Katie, to know what to do?
I don't think so.
Before.
I think
Okay, how do you want to treat this, consent or general business?
General.
I'm okay with consent, mostly because it's really an administrative step. Something we're already, like, there's no real big changes happening imminently, except we give them the framework to close it.
Well, I'll tell you, at our next council meeting, it'd be a consent calendar only. So I think there's enough interest in this that it should be general business.
I'd say, but if only to educate people.
And to
About we're
brag on
taking
us.
this step and, towards the culmination of the vision. So it's part of public record.
General business will allow Rick's voice to be heard in this.
Yeah.
He wants to table it all together.
And it'll
Yeah,
give
I
us
wanna
a chance
ta- I
to
wanna
brag.
table it
Mhm.
altogether.
Yeah. So then,
Yeah.
so it'll be under general business.
Yeah.
Okay, I think it's
Sorry, Katie.
time for a break. So let's take a break. What time? 7 o'clock. So we'll come back at 7:10.
Sounds
7:10.
good. So that are you seeing me squinting?
How do you shut this off? Is this off?
Rick, do you want to not go blind? We want to help you out here?
It's okay. Thank you, though.
I didn't hear recording. Study session back to order. Next, we're having an information-only presentation. I would like to welcome Planning Manager Garrett Jackson here to present on item B1. Welcome.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, City Council. We are here to discuss potential zoning code amendments. The Bremerton Housing Authority has made an application to amend temporary encampment permits for EMC 2046-090 to extend areas that are allowed for 3-year temporary encampment permit. Planning Commission public hearing was just held on August 17th. That's actually the date that our materials were due to be submitted for this study session. So we were given an extra day. Thus, the information only sessions is a very tight turnaround to get this information in front of you. We'll start with just a brief or quasi-brief timeline of how we got here for the Sheridan Site Zoning Code amendments. In January of 24, the City Council passed Resolution 3375 for a hybrid low barrier walk-up congregate shelter and pallet shelter to open the fall of 2024. And I'm sorry, this isn't in your packet today, but we will get updated to my packet to be updated. So it will be updated. In July of 2024, Ordinance 5494 was passed. City Council adopted a BHA proposed zoning code amendment to allow for 3-year temporary encampment permits in select zones in the city. In August of 2024, DCU staff responded to the BHA team that reached out asking if the Sheridan site would allow for an extended pallet shelter. And we responded back in August 24 that this 3-year temporary encampment would not be permitted at the Sheridan site, but that an indoor emergency shelter would. In December of 2024, there was an interlocal agreement between the City Council and DHA for a hybrid congregate and pallet shelter in accordance with applicable laws and regulations. In August of 2025, there was a pre-submittal conference where DHA participated in the pre-submittal for a hybrid congregate and pallet shelter. At that time, DCU provided feedback that the indoor emergency shelter would be allowed, but the pallet shelter for the extended 3 years would require a zoning code amendment. In September of 25, there was a City Council study session where DHA presented to City Council on the proposed shelter. In November of 25, DHA purchased the 1231 Sheridan site. In January of 26, there was another City Council study session where BHA presented options on the shelter. In May, there was another pre-submittal conference between BHA and in the city for a pallet-only shelter proposal. And once again, that feedback was provided that a zoning code amendment would be required. In May, the BHA withdrew an application for a zoning code amendment that was due to go to the Planning Commission on May 18th. DCD received a complete application in June from BHA for a revised proposal for a zoning code amendment. And that led to Planning Commission workshops in June and July, and finally a public hearing in August. The Planning Commission recommendation that resulted from that public hearing was a recommendation for no code change. So the Planning Commission findings and conclusions, which are included in the packet, find that the proposal was inconsistent with countywide planning policies, the comprehensive plan, and the Harrison Heights Savaria plan. And we're here to talk about next steps for the city council in the review process. So we plan to have a public hearing on September 16th. So there'd be a study session on September 9th, followed by a public hearing on the 16th, where two motions will be available for consideration at the public hearing. One, for the city council to accept the planning commission recommendation of no code change. And two, that the city council directs staff to develop an ordinance for modification of the temporary encampment code, and then direct staff to accomplish the SEPA review process related to that amendment and schedule a future public hearing on that ordinance at a time to be determined. So as the planning commission recommended no code change, there was no SEPA review for that. If there will be a code change, then we'll need to do the SEPA process, which takes approximately 2 weeks. So the planning commission arrived at its recommendation of no code change based off of the criteria of approval in the municipal code. So per BMC 2018, text amendments may be necessary when changing circumstances or conditions justify updates to the zoning code's development regulations, provided those changes are consistent with the comprehensive plan. So it's unclear what changes have occurred since the comprehensive plan was adopted recently in June of 2025. But the two criteria of approval are: one, the proposal is consistent with the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan, and two, it does not conflict with other city, state, or federal codes, regulations, or ordinances. So if either of these criteria are met, the proposal cannot be adopted. So we'll move into some review that may be helpful on what led to the recommendation. And that starts with a review of some basic terminology. So there's been some confusion over what maybe a pallet shelter or an indoor emergency shelter might be and how those are regulated. And STEP housing, which stands for indoor emergency shelters, transitional housing, emergency housing, and or permanent supportive housing, is an acronym that leads to STEP housing. And it's required by the state of Washington for RCW 3521-683 that jurisdictions allow STEP housing anywhere where a hotel is allowed, or in certain for transitional housing anywhere where residential use. So STEP housing are structures that meet local development standards. This includes the building code and other basic development standards for structures and surrounding property. And Bremerton has completed the code amendment adoption process for STEP housing. It's currently allowed in our code anywhere where a hotel is allowed. At the Sheridan site, you could develop STEP housing today. Temporary encampments are regulated differently by RCW 3521-915, and they're only required by the state of Washington for religious organizations and only for a limited amount of time. Temporary accommodations like these do not meet building code or local development standards, and they do not count toward growth targets. There aren't any adopted Washington State Building Code requirements for these temporary structures, but they are currently being considered by the Building Code Council. You'll see some examples here of STEP housing, including the Benedict House, Salvation Army, and the Sales Center. In temporary encampments, you'll see examples from the city of Seattle, city of Everett, and city of Olympia, with what's proposed for the code revision be more made of rigid structures. So you see the two examples from Everett and Olympia being made more of rigid structures as opposed to the tents for the city of Seattle. Now there is guidance from the Washington State Department of Commerce on these temporary structures and whether they are required or not. And once again, temporary structures cannot be counted toward a jurisdiction's comprehensive plan local housing need allocations. Temporary encampments are elective and not required by the state of Washington. And this guidance was first published in July of 2024, informing jurisdictions of how to consider these temporary structures. This information was not available when the Planning Commission originally recommended code amendments to the City Council, allowing 3-year encampments in May of 2024. And Commerce reiterated this guidance very recently in June of 2026. You'll see a slide here up on the screen where, once again, they reiterate that requirements for indoor emergency housing and more indoor emergency shelters apply to permanent structures, not temporary structures. There's been a lot of misinformation about what laws apply to these temporary structures that we've heard throughout this process. This is the Department of Commerce giving us that guidance, but that jurisdictions may allow temporary structures for emergency housing and are encouraged to do so. And we'll come back around to that later. So there's a note at the bottom about housing goals that are in our comprehensive plan do not apply to temporary structures. There's plenty of examples of goals for housing in the city of Bremerton, whether that's market rate housing or low income housing. These goals do not apply to temporary structures. So when Washington State estimates that 1.1 million new homes will be needed by 2044, the Puget Sound Regional Council estimates that 830,000 new homes will be needed by 2050. Kitsap Regional Coordinating Council estimates that 33,000 new homes will be needed by 2044. Our Bremerton Comprehensive Plan estimating that approximately 96,000 new homes will be needed, and the Harrison Heights Severia Plan estimating that approximately 1,700 new homes will be needed. None of these are temporary structures.
So 9,600 new homes for the comp.
Yeah, you said 96,000. Just
Oh.
want to clarify for the public. Yeah,
Yeah, that was it. And then the figures for Harrison Heights is that 1,695 new homes, 1,695 new homes just in the
Within.
Harrison Heights
Yeah.
sub area. Thank you.
So these new homes that are needed aren't just what you would think of as far as a multifamily unit or a single family home. You may not be able to see it very well, but in the upper right-hand corner, there's a figure from the Department of Commerce that kind of divvies up that 1.1 million new homes that are estimated to be needed by 2044. And that includes housing for persons between 0 and 30% AMI. Now that's either permanent supportive housing or non-permanent supportive housing. And these are included in total housing projections. But once again, these are permanent structures. So it's not as though housing for those experiencing homelessness isn't planned for. It's just that those are for permanent structures. And a permanent structure here we have an example of would be Pendleton Place, and a temporary structure, once again, from the city of Olympia being an example. So according to the Department of Commerce, rising rents combined with lagging income growth and a lack of housing supply are the core causes of increased homelessness in the state. And we provided this video to City Council and the public here on what are the root causes of homelessness during the comp plan update, which kind of reaffirms that really it's a lack of housing, although it's very maybe intuitive and obvious, a lack of housing that leads to homelessness. And the City Council very recently with the comprehensive plan update loosened up our code drastically to encourage new housing. And there's a list here. I could read them out loud, but I don't think that that's the best use of time. But there are a number of incentives that we've adopted to create new housing in order, in part, to address homelessness. Temporary encampment permits. So getting back to this Washington State encouraging jurisdictions to allow for temporary structures. And we do. We have an existing code section that allows for a 183-day temporary encampment permit in any zone in the city. It's a type 1 permit. There's required outreach to police, fire, schools, childcare, required neighborhood meetings, agreements to inspections from police, fire, building, and health, plans for security, sanitation, trash setbacks, and screening, and an established code of conduct. And that's in our existing 183-day temporary encampment permit allowed in all zones. And we also allow currently for a 3-year temporary encampment permit, and that's elective from the city. So the city goes above and beyond state requirements in allowing for this 3-year temporary encampment permit. It's a type 2 conditional use permit. It requires that social services be provided on site, that accommodations are composed of those rigid materials that we talked about earlier, and that it's eligible for smaller sites. So part of that BHA proposal in 2024 was a request to allow for beyond our standard 1 acre to lower that down to a half acre so that more sites were available when they're doing their search for a potential temporary encampment site. And that it's allowed in select zoning districts. So here's a map of the existing zones in the city that allow for a 3-year extended permit. Now, it should be noted too that it is a 3-year permit, but it also has the option for successive 3 years to be added on with additional conditional use permits. So the zones that is permitted in are the district center core, general commercial, freeway corridor, industrial zone, and Puget Sound Industrial Center. And excluding the watershed and city utility lands, this represents approximately 42% of all property area in the city of Bremerton with the current permit. So moving in to the comprehensive plan. So sure, everybody is familiar through the comp planning process of the image you see here on the screen. And it really reiterates that our local comprehensive plan needs to comply with several jurisdictional levels of oversight. And that starts with the growth management. And we get guidance documents from the Department of Commerce on how to implement GNA. The Puget Sound Regional Council and their guiding document, Vision 2050, and there are multi-county planning policies listed in that document. The Kitsap Regional Coordinating Council and their CPPs, countywide planning policies, and then our comprehensive plan. And we should just note that the goals and policies LU1B coordinate Bremerton's growth consistent with the Kitsap countywide planning policies, Puget Sound Regional Council's Vision 2050, and state requirements. And that gets to the importance of the Harrison Heights Countywide Center. So Harrison Heights is a center not only recognized by the city for concentrated development, but also through the CPPs. So the Puget Sound Regional Council has an MPP to encourage growth in designated countywide centers. The countywide planning policies note that centers are focal points of growth within Kitsap County, and decisions related to population and employment growth and resource allocation supporting growth, centers have a high priority. The Bremerton Comprehensive Plan has many policies related to centers, one of those being provide sufficient land for the city's projected population and housing targets, especially in the city centers accessible to transit. So we should note that approximately 70% of all future housing units needed by 2044 are planned within city centers. Within the Harrison Heights, 17% of all total housing units are planned for that by 2044. The Harrison Heights Sub-Area Plan also calls for the support transformation of underutilized lands, such as surplus property, parking lots, environmentally contaminated lands that are cleaned up for mixed-use development, and more amenities aligned with the vision of the sub area. So there's an additional comprehensive plan policy that we encourage rental and subsidized housing near public transportation, employment opportunities, and throughout the city in a manner that accommodates Bremerton's fair share of countywide need. So assessing what that countywide need is and whether Bremerton is providing their fair share, we can look at a number of guiding documents. One of those being the Kitsap County Homeless Housing Plan for the years 2025 to 2030. And in that plan, they recognize that in our countywide planning policies, there is a 2020 snapshot in time that shows populations throughout Kitsap County, and that Bremerton provides substantially more housing for those experiencing homelessness than other Kitsap jurisdictions. Homeless crisis response providers identified several critical gaps that hinder progress in Kitsap, including geographic disparities with services concentrated in Bremerton. This is the snapshot that I was referencing earlier. So this is in the countywide homeless housing plan and also in the countywide planning policies for this, or the CPPs. This is a condensed version that only shows AMI from 0 to 30%. The countywide planning policies include this information plus other economic segments of the population.
Can I ask you a question right here?
Please.
How come Bainbridge Island and Port Orchard, they don't appear to have to put in any permanent housing needs by income level?
They do have an allocation. So this is broken up by estimated housing supply, the allocation from 2020 to 2024, and what you might be shooting for in the next 5 years. So that's how this table is broken down. So yes, in some areas, the estimated housing supply is 0 because there is no current permanent supportive housing or emergency housing potentially in those jurisdictions. So it doesn't mean that they don't have an allocation for the future. It means that they may have none of those housing types today.
Oh, correct. Okay.
So, but the takeaway from this table is that both in raw numbers and per capita, Bremerton leads in every category, existing housing and projected housing. So it's good to understand also a little more about our houseless population in Kitsap. And for that, we turn to the Kitsap County point in time count for 2026. And that, and you can see here up on the pie chart in the upper right-hand corner, the jurisdictional breakdown of unhoused individuals in Kitsap County, and noting that 46% of those self-reported as being in the city of Bremerton. There wasn't an unincorporated option. So once again, this is self-reporting. And just to go back to this table once again, unincorporated Kitsap County, those numbers, both existing and projected, that includes the Silverdale Regional Center. So like our downtown is a regional center designated by PSRC, so is Silverdale. That includes Kingston. That includes the Central Kitsap Urban Growth Area. That includes unincorporated urban growth areas throughout Bremerton. We have a lot of kind of donut holes throughout the city. So just to point out, we're leading in raw numbers and per capita, despite those other urban areas and unincorporated Kitsap County. So per the Kitsap County Homeless and Housing Plan, also all comprehensive plans for Kitsap jurisdictions each contain provisions for addressing and providing housing to homeless, those experiencing homelessness. The Kitsap County HEART Team, Homeless Encampment Action Response and Transitions Team, connects individuals countywide that are in unsanctioned encampments to stable housing and services most likely located in the city of Bremerton.
That's my question.
You'll see here also how hard it is to define for that self-reporting. What is the city of Bremerton? You'll see here the area in dark blue are the incorporated city limits. And in the area in light blue are areas that have a Bremerton address.
Wow.
So this includes Wildcat Lake, Panther Lake, to Lake Tuhuya, the the Brownsville Marina, and even as far north as the new Harrison Hospital in Silverdale. Directly across the street of Ridgetop Boulevard, there's residences with Bremerton addresses. You'll see some census data here that indicates both the poverty level and median household income by jurisdiction in Kitsap County, with Bremerton leading with a nearly 14% poverty rate and lowest median household income of $74,000. Bainbridge Island with a poverty rate of 3.5% and median household income of $172,000. Kitsap County with a poverty rate of 7.8% and a median household income of $104,000. Port Orchard with a poverty rate of 9.7%, median income $89,000. Paulsbo, poverty rate of 9.3%, median household income $116,000. This has sometimes been framed as a referendum on whether Bremerton supports our homeless population. This ordinance, and I would say, this application. And I'd say that that's incorrect based off of the table showing the existing services that the city of Bremerton provides and what has been constructed since that 2020 snapshot. So there was that point in time, that snapshot from 2020 that's adopted in the CCPs that's in the countywide homelessness plan for the next 5 years. And Bremerton has provided a lot of new development. There's the new Willow Center, Evergreen Bright Start, Wheaton Landing, Sukkot Pendleton Place, and we recently received a building permit for the Star of Hope on Callow. And these are all positive signs that the city is planning for housing for our houseless population. But once again, that this isn't captured in the previous projections from 2020. This is the progress we've made just since then.
I have a question about, you can stay on the slide for a minute. Mayor, you could probably answer this for me. Every single one of those projects up there, either the city contributed with our funds or through our allocation for SIA and home funds. If I'm correct, right? Okay.
And Wheaton Landing
Yeah, we gave some money for that.
is formerly known as Mills Crossing.
No,
no.
this
So
doesn't
this
even
is in-
have Mills Crossing.
Right.
Yeah.
And these are all
That just
these
got
are all
over
projects where I was
engagement.
able to find direct quotes online for providing housing to those experiencing homelessness.
Oh,
I
okay.
just so happen to not be able to find that for
Okay.
Mills Crossing. While it's heavily suspected from me, I just couldn't find it. Otherwise, that would be up
Yeah.
now. So, yeah. So once again, the Planning Commission has provided their recommendation based off of conformance with the comprehensive plan for housing allocations. That temporary encampments are not mentioned once in the comprehensive plan or temporary structures, and that Bremerton is already having their fair share of providing these services. We get the next steps of having a public hearing on September 16th. So this is once again just saying that there will be 2 motions available at the public hearing. One to accept the Planning Commission's recommendation of no code change, and the other to direct staff to develop an ordinance for modification to temporary encampment code, complete the SEPA process, and schedule a future public hearing on the proposed ordinance. Happy to take questions.
Anybody have questions for Jackson?
Okay. So, my first question is a couple of constituents asked me about this. Why are the pallet shelters not considered like a transitional housing village, but they're considered a temporary encampment?
So transitional housing is regulated by the state of Washington, and it's a permanent structure.
Okay.
So that's why they're not.
Got it. Would sanctioned camping be allowed on this site?
Sanctioned camping. I'm not sure what you.
The photo you had from Seattle is a sanctioned
Sure.
campsite.
For a 183-day permit.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Almost done. Just to confirm these figures, there's approximately 370,000 new housing units for 0 to 30% AMI that are needed.
In Washington State, is that what you were referencing?
I don't have the slide in front of me.
Sure. Let me
Sorry.
back up.
It's got to be like.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, please go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt. I mushed, that's the technical term, the 0% and the 30% AMI columns on that graph, on that table.
Here we are.
Yeah,
So this is what you're referencing?
that really tiny one up in the right-hand corner there, yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'll trust your math on that, but yes, that's the amount of 0 to 30% AMI housing is needed. Now it's broken down into permanent supportive housing and non-permanent supportive housing.
Okay, and that's statewide.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. Thanks. And then one of the things that one of the community partners brought up multiple times during the multiple times that we have talked about this was that the hybrid shelter or either element of the hybrid shelter were restricted by distance from a school.
There's nothing in the code that talks about buffer from schools. There is required outreach to the Bremerton School District.
Okay, because that was a really persuasive argument. Because I was believing it up until now, for why they had to choose this site and why they couldn't choose any of the other sites that were proposed, was that they had to be a certain distance from a school.
Well, there is a school across the street, so I'm not sure. I don't track that, but
Yeah.
But there
But
is
there's gonna
anything in
be.
the temporary encampment code. It's just required outreach.
Okay. So there's nothing, just like underlining this, there's nothing in the code that regulates distance from a school.
For the temporary encampment, no,
Okay.
The 183-day one, you mean, or
either.
either? Okay.
I mean, one of the blacked out areas is the actual View Ridge School in the allowables, so.
Okay.
So is the Perry Avenue Mall.
So is the surplus city property that belongs to the county right off of,
Loxie Egan. No,
not Lexi Egan's, but Arsenal,
yes.
yes. Which was turned down for that reason. And it's property we already own. But if it's in the county.
But it's got a Bremerton address.
Basically, the entire world has a Bremerton address right up to the middle of the road opposite the hospital. Jiminy.
Did you have
Those-
something to say, Mayor?
Yeah,
Do a cease and
State House
desist.
President, he's landing 730,000 city home. contribution from the state.
And then wasn't Star of Hope too? They were recipients of SIA and Home Funds too. I'm not sure how that's broken down between county and city though.
not on that one. I don't recall. I mean, I am writing letters of
Mhm.
support while they go out to look for funds.
Mhm.
No direct funds that I can recall.
Which project?
Star Hope.
Star Hope,
Start Hope, no, they started to apply this year, and then there's complexities with federal funds, and they would have to stop if they were seeking federal funds, so they declined to come after it.
okay.
That's
And both
wonderful.
SIA and Home are federal funds?
SIA is not, SIA's local funds, and it's way easier to work with than.
See, for some reason, I thought somebody who was on the county committee told me that SIA funds were made available to Star of Hope, but I want to say last year.
That could very well be, I think that they are successful with SIA, they didn't want to take home funds.
Right, because of the,
It's very
Yeah.
difficult.
yeah, I understand that. One thing that isn't included in all the numbers here is the supportive housing that's done by smaller groups. I mean, we know that Eagles Wings is housing 143 people now. We also have Homes of Compassion. I don't know what their count is. And Agape and the Drug Court alumni, they all have supportive housing within the city of Bremerton. So,
Oxford houses.
yes, and the Oxford houses. So,
Women's shelters.
yes.
So these are just a few examples.
Right, those are the bigger
ones. Right.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
there's been a lot of progress since 2020 in providing housing for those experiencing the city.
Yeah, I'd like to compile those numbers. There's a state group. The acronym sounds like Walker, but it's not spelled like Walker. And they certify supportive housing to make sure that they're totally safe. Like there'll be carbon monoxide, there'll be handrails, not carbon
There'll be
monoxide
detectors, yeah. They
Sorry.
won't be piping in carbon monoxide.
So somehow I've sent them requests several times to get numbers of exactly how many buildings there are already in Bremerton city limits. So we can get a better count of the supportive housing that we're already helping.
And honestly, through the 2020 snapshot, they show, the existing housing. Those numbers are provided by the Department of Commerce, and they weren't sharing the kind of background data. So it's just supposed to be a snapshot estimate. It might not be perfect, but I believe that it gets the general point.
Well, and we can probably rely on the comparisons then, like how they're counting is going to be the same for unincorporated as it is in Bremerton and all of that. So at least we know we're kind of comparing in the same way, I hope.
And to the credit of the Department of Commerce, there's been a lot of legislation passed fairly recently that a lot of jurisdictions are catching up to. So the playing field is kind of being leveled as far as what you're entitled to throughout each jurisdiction. And I think that the state and other jurisdictions are still kind of getting us.
One thing I want to make really clear to the public too, council has not voted on anything regarding this project or
For
this
years.
type of project since 2024. So,
January.
no, we had a vote
Oh,
for
right,
the
right, right.
ILA.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of misinformation that people think council is trying to stop progress of this project, but we haven't been able to vote on anything. So. Anybody else have questions or comments? So this will be on the 9th the next time. And I'm inviting the community partners to come and give us a presentation also the same night, so that we have all that information before we go into a public hearing the following week.
Were they invited tonight?
I told them it was gonna be on the agenda and
They declined in their
No, I know,
letter.
that's why I thought it was weird. We got an email that says we're not attending study session
Yeah.
tonight because we feel it's important for the council to have this discussion with the information that's already been provided.
the information
They
was-
presented.
And so that's where disappointing, but I just wanted to see and make sure that they had in fact, and that was their answer.
They
Well-
presented like 73 times.
I did ask them to be ready to do a full presentation. So. Okay, any other questions, comments? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Garrett. Okay, perhaps we can talk about this again soon.
Can I ask a question? Is this presentation okay for the public hearing?
Yes. And this is going to go onto our agenda packet so that tomorrow people can
And look at
see
it.
the whole,
We'll get it. to Christine. So I don't know what Christine's schedule looks like.
right,
Updated.
okay.
Okay, so we're good. And I'll just note that on the 9th, Garrett and I are going to a conference. He's gonna present remotely on the 9th. And so he'll just run through these same slides again. if you're
Okay.
with that. I don't like being remote when we're just presenting, but it,
Yeah, we're trying to move this along as quickly as we can. But it'll be the same presentation that we just.
correct.
Okay.
Unless you wanted some modification to it, I'm not here.
I think it's a good time for some space in between so we can hear from community members too. Because we might have additional questions for Garrett after we hear from the community. All righty. So next, under general council business, I'm gonna invite Chair Christy Camerata to provide a brief summary of the August 25th audit committee meeting.
Why did she like inflect on brief?
I know.
Did you notice that? No. I don't know.
I felt it, but I'm glad that you brought it up.
Yeah.
So we had the audit committee meeting yesterday, and because it was a meeting that was moved, and it was right before we were kind of coming up against, this room was already booked. So we had a very brief meeting. We went over a draft of some of the work that Jenny had done before on contracts and the RFP process. And so she kind of did a little bit of a deep dive into that. So that should be moving. She's got a couple things to follow up on that should be moving from draft to final form for everybody. And then she did a brief update of the property tax work that she's doing. And that was really enlightening for me. And I brought this up to her because I looked into some of it and was very, very confused. And so it was very nice to hear from somebody else who is a very intelligent person who was like, I'm looking into this and it is confusing. So I think it's going to be excellent work to have some framework of kind of a layperson's, who that's the audience, so that we can understand those property tax exemptions and what they actually mean for the city. So that's going to be really exciting, but it is definitely a larger piece of work than she was anticipating, just because it's not as easy as this equals this and this is mathematically how it's treated. So she's going to do the deep dive into that.
Excellent. Next, I'm going to invite Chair Michael Goodnow to provide a brief summary of the August 25th. investment-
Okay. Yeah,
You guys
got one of
both
these?
need to get on the same
Yes.
day?
Yeah.
It
Oh.
happened like that. We had to move on it.
Oh, that's right.
Audits quarterly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, so you're, I think it's the first one we've actually handed you.
Mhm.
Yeah, this is awesome.
You'll probably, we may not do paper every time, but we just thought it'd be good to do that. So anyways,
This is great.
we're trying to like a little or something.
Yes.
I do want you to give this to Christine so she can update the agenda to show, because people get concerned when, yeah, when paper's passed around and
Oh,
they
yeah.
don't have it.
Yeah. But, and again, in the future, we'll do, all digital. I just,
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
wanna-
That's great.
I wanted to actually pass them out, but Mike stole my thunder. I've been keeping my fingertips moist all evening, so I could. Okay, We got a presentation from Judge Weaver and the
Miha?
parole officer.
Oh, okay.
Name now I forgot. I was trying to remember it. But so it's a little complicated, but there's a position out there that we've changed some names and stuff. There's like a therapeutic court administrator. And what they would like to do is this is like one of those like move things around but don't move things around. But they're interested in basically staffing it with a kind of a mixed use job position where it'd be a half-time parole officer, a half-time therapeutic court administrator, and the half-time parole officer would also be the supervisor for the other parole officer. And the desire would be that from the judge and the other parole officer be that she would move into that position. They would be hiring a new full-time parole officer. We've committed to funding this. We had some funding coming from the state. We have some funding coming from the state. So it's a budgeted line item, but in full disclosure too, the state has pulled back some of the money based on trend in our court. I don't know what else, behavior,
Numbers.
issues,
Impact.
chaos. I think honestly,
Yeah.
They actually have. I felt really good about the program again. They've graduated people. I think they're about to, and but the main thing here is when we decriminalized felonies to misdemeanors, what's that?
Sorry, I'm interrupting. The
It's
impact probably isn't even there.
That we're seeing a larger load in the court. We talked about this happening, but also if increasing the parole officer by 0.5 really helps and the therapeutic court goes hand in hand, because then we can send people to jail less, and we know how very expensive going to jail. So this is just whet your appetite on this. It'll be coming.
He's obviously making some structural changes, which every new.
There was no tangible, it was throwing in last minute, it was throwing numbers at you.
Oh.
And wait, what? And then it's $80,000 in a grant to fill an FTE that is in excess of $80,000 that they would like to pull from the general fund. There's no backup money, there is no backup plans. They're increasing what that FTE was to a higher position in attempting to do that, which then increases money. So I'm hoping whatever we actually have will be some sort of tangible something, because what was brought was.
Did you give that feedback
Yes.
to them?
Yeah.
Good, good.
I gave them the same feedback when I went to their meeting in early July.
We got nothing. It was a 20-minute presentation that they called in between things that they had to do, and it was.
Okay.
Well,
Because they had been scheduled to come and present to us last month.
We want them to be successful when they
Yeah.
present.
Yeah. So that's I feel like this is what we were talking about, just getting ready. But anything you want to add or on why the timeline, or did you guys just kind of come up with this as a solution recently?
I think the court's been reaching out, they've been trying to get on council agenda for the last couple months, they keep delaying, they postpone, so, it was the proposal. We met with them on Thursday to walk through the proposal, kind of ironed out some of the details. It'll be coming to state session on the next cycle.
Yeah.
So you'll see that, they will have their packet, they'll have everything laid out, where the decision was, where it moved to, what the request.
Because you know what we need.
Yes, and we're working in collaboration with them. We'll provide the financial picture of everything, the grant funds. They're gonna talk about the why. And so you'll see that in your packet there. Eventually there'll be a PowerPoint that they'll deliver in the packet. So we're working with them for the other things.
Yeah, I asked them to identify any saving, anything that can help. And I said that basically that council's gonna want to know how do we pay for it, and
Yeah, exactly.
so. All right, the other main thing we talked about was that the city's applying for some lodging tax. And that was more of just a information item. And I think anything else that was,
Fire chief came by.
oh, the fire, yeah, he didn't want anything. He was just laying out like, okay, so the levy lift passed, and this is how it looks like it's gonna roll out. And real quick, it looks like they will next year try to hire, they'll actually hire 8 positions, but it'll only be a net 5 because of 3 retirements, which are the 2 battalion chiefs and chief. And
Chiefs retired?
and the next year,
Yeah.
and then the next year they'll hire at least a net 4, and that'll be the new 9 firefighters from that. And then obviously
Good plan.
there's a plan for construction to start into equipment.
After we start getting money.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was from next year through 2031.
Yeah.
What the plan was.
Yeah, and he actually kind of even knew like then when it came to having the bulk of the money when it came time to purchase the new apparatus. So yeah, I think that's the bulk of what we had, or the highlights.
Just have to say, congratulations to the fire department. And I personally was impressed by the firefighters themselves videotaping, taping short messages on social media. That it was real, it was factual, talking about impact, really made it community focused. Congratulations, Chief.
Is he on?
No.
Next,
Okay.
Anna, have you had a KCR meeting yet?
Oh, yes,
Okay, do you want to report on that?
I did. It went from 8:15 until 3:15.
Wow.
It was
They have snacks.
Tasmagina meeting. Yes, there were snacks and there were like sandwiches. There were tofu
Was it a
sandwiches.
retreat or something?
It was the retreat.
Okay.
Yeah. No, yeah.
That makes more sense.
We went in there knowing what was gonna go on. Okay, so, money, we talked about money, and, one of the things that has been going on ever since I've been on KCR is, repaying the county the 1.5 mil line of credit they had from county to KCR. 300K is already paid. They worked out an agreement. They'll pay them 20K a month, until it was used to provide services during COVID, which KCR Head Start, which I'll come back to, because that was quite a long presentation. It's got a budget of $5 million a year, and that pays, among other things, for 60 full-time equivalents at KCR for just Head Start alone. The new rulemaking from the federal government is expected to deregulate Head Start. And since that is an unknown, it's an unknown. The community needs assessment. I don't know if everyone got a chance to look at the last one that KCR did, but it was really good. It was really good outreach. It's open until Halloween, so please promote people taking that survey. Head Start got what they call dinged. They were found to have major significant, I believe the phrase is significant weaknesses, significant discrepancies. So they have come up with an entire corrective plan, which has been accepted. And it includes they have a new policy, and they have a plan to train all KCR people on this policy. This one is,
Is this a financial or like a?
no, it's it emphasizes the KCR board's fiduciary responsibility. The kernel of this, let me just say it in plain language, is that minutes were being taken that just said questions were raised. That, they wanted,
What are the questions?
Human Services wants to know what are the questions and what were the answers. Not just like action items, which is, getting more and more popular everywhere. they were dinged because we are not following our own bylaws that include, when information is given and how much information, and that it's like disseminated to the board, not just to individuals. I have to say, I thought their corrective plan was really great on all of these. There was a plan for it. They are also beefing up internal controls to move towards compliance. Almost done. The big fear that they are having is if your program is in good standing, the 5-year renewal is fairly automatic. If you go into designation renewal, it is an open competition. So
What is designation? What do you mean?
it's just risks for Board of Agencies. So it's like the lowest one is they can disallow certain expenditures, even if you've already received it. Then you can get like instead of being renewed more or less automatically, you have to like start all over again from the beginning. And then the most severe is immediate removal of the grant, which,
And that's Head Start.
yeah, this is all
That's
for
the
Head Start. So this is something that we moved on to talk about for the whole second half of the retreat, which is asking questions is really important. It's like the fact that we didn't have enough information to ask questions, or there wasn't a culture of approving asking questions. People don't like being asked questions about what they do. Right. We've all noticed this over the years on council. But just to see how very clear it is that this is an important role that is not greeted with like cries of approval, but that it's really necessary, that the KCR board, and here I'm obviously drawing a parallel, that the KCR board oversee Head Start and oversee all of the programs and really dig in. Pretty much the rest of it was audit, lots and lots and lots of audit. The 2024 audit was completed. We reviewed the draft. It was just a draft and they kept like informing us of that. The 2025 audit is expected to be done at the end of September of this year. And then really the rest of it was a discourse on how no one had time to be on the KCR board. And that all of these changes they were asking for were hampered by the fact that everyone said, well, I don't have time for that. So I thought that was really interesting. Yeah, and that was pretty much what happened, except we did like exercises that were, like
Team building.
kind of sort of, like what was the big disagreement at your wedding?
Which one?
Well, that was my question too. But yeah, it was the very first time that I've been in the room with just the board and Tony. And it was really interesting. And I'm not going to make anybody watch the video. I don't think there is a video. Okay.
Set.
I am. Unless anybody wants to hear more details of the audit. You guys okay with that?
I just want to make sure a copy of it gets to our.
I
Finance.
emailed Director Riley about the expected completion dates.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna give you a brief summary on a meeting I went at the Port of Bremerton. It was Infrastructure Day, I think is what they called it. There was a lot of folks in the construction industry, and everybody's looking at how we can quickly build up the business area out by the airport. And of course, the big stumbling block is sewer. there's other things, you know, I didn't stick around for PSE stumbling blocks, I'm sure means more money. But Ned gave a great presentation. I think you all know that Ned and the mayor and some others negotiated for over 2 years with Mason County to try to utilize some of their plant, and in the end, they said no. Their state reps were in favor of it, but I believe the commissioners weren't. So then we got into what it was going to cost to either do basically large, I'm going to call them septic systems, and I know that's not the real name out there that would support a lot of businesses, or piping everything, including, I think, 6 or 7 lift stations all the way to our treatment plant. And our treatment plant could handle the capacity, but of course, the question is who pays for it and how's it paid for? And I'm sure there'd be some grant funding, but still the question has not been answered if and how much the existing ratepayers would have to pay to do that for a potential build out by the airport. So that was my last question that I had, and there's no answer yet. It's still something they're looking at.
Interesting that they had Ned. I mean, I think it was great that Ned presented, but they had him present despite the fact that it didn't go through.
Well,
It
well,
was
we know.
worthy enough. What I'm saying is that information or his, was worth presenting, even though it didn't culminate in the deal.
Yeah, but I mean, the deal's done. There's no
Yeah,
deal, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
he presented what our options now are.
Okay.
So that it was very informative,
Yeah.
lots of questions. It was really good. And then I got up and left because I didn't want to listen to PSC for 2.5 hours.
We
The
understand.
mayor was there. I'm sure
Yeah.
that was thrilling listening to how much money they want to
Everybody
raise
got
outrage.
their recent mailing of the
Oh, they want to raise it again.
12-page
Yeah.
cardstock, full color.
Because of this PUD thing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Which I don't know if I have any confidence that they could actually deliver. So it's easy to make campaign promises, right? Everyone,
Sure, everybody can.
but like,
I didn't make any.
Well, that's a good segue into my general, I have to go to the order.
I like segues.
Council President, they do have a plan for electrical build out.
Yeah.
At least that's there. And then PUD got up and they have, they've got it covered as far as fire. So.
Good.
Yeah.
Yep, that was good. And just like as a fun little fact, in case I haven't whined about it before, but our PSE bill for the city now is up to over $250,000 a month. Over a 30% increase.
Makes my $500 electricity bill looks very pretty at my shop.
I was gonna say that better be at your shop.
500, it was 449,
good
but
thing
I
we have LED lights on the streets now.
had a $700 bill anyway.
Yeah, I know. We thought we were gonna be saving. Okay,
Well, we have good segue.
other people
The
have,
campaign promises. No, I did have a good, you could say vertical teaming or lateral teaming. I prefer to say lateral teaming meeting, with our current representative, Tara Simmons, and then, Katie Walters was also there, along with, John Clausen. And we talked a little bit more about some, gaps and some transportation issues that we, of course, guess that we talked about.
Pine Road?
What? What? It's almost,
What about Pine Road?
almost like
What's wrong with it?
Denise talked about a park. What?
Yeah, that's right.
So it was, but I really enjoyed talking with Katie Walters. She knows her stuff. She had some good ideas. She talked about, what about stormwater funding, and she had some other ideas. And we also had some Street Smart Bremerton folks there that had some ideas too. One of our, well, he's not our constituent. He's outside of the city, but he's been to a few of our things, and he had a really fun idea, which sounds, we wouldn't be able to implement it, but it sounds pretty. For a bike lane to have could we? I don't know, maybe we could, to have a whole line of planter boxes as the buffer.
They do it in Seattle.
Oh,
They
sure.
do it
That's
all
what
over
he's
the place.
saying. Yeah. Is that something we could, Pine Road is a really long road. But it was a nice conversation. So hopefully he and I will have some more conversations together. And we'll see how things shake out after November, right? To see who else I'll be lobbying to.
Campaign promises. Gotcha. Okay. We're there. We got
Not
it.
mine.
Segue.
I'm not, I have no campaign.
You promised to
There
segue.
will be no
We
more
got a
campaign
segue.
after this.
Okay, did anybody else attend any regional or important meetings or events that they want to talk about? Okay, well then, the next council meeting will be on Wednesday, September 2nd, starting at 5:30 p.m. in the first floor meeting chambers of the Norm Dix Government Center. The public are invited to attend in person or remotely. Details on how to participate can be found by visiting the council webpage and clicking on council alert at the top of the city council webpage.
I have something for good of the order.
That already happened.
Where you had go to the
Just
order?
close
We
the
were
meeting.
just asked about meetings, not good of the order.
Well, she's,
Okay,
Yeah. I had to
I have
get you before the
there's-
hammer.
there's 3 words left.
Okay, go.
no, you have to go.
Oh, okay. Just a couple of things. One is I have been talking to a number of people about a project that I'm gonna email all of you guys about. It's about like finding funding for parks operations. The second thing is our rules and procedures call for courtesy, decorum, and respect. And I think we could really use to amp that up. It's not gonna be so hot anymore. So I'd really like us to be focusing on that, every one of us. And I am not accepting myself in any way. That was it that I had for good of the order.
Okay.
Just a heads up that, Wednesday in November will be Veterans Day. So we usually roll.
Have it the
to
next day.
Thursday, but just make sure people are kind of aware that
Is that on the budget season? No, that's a couple weeks beforehand.
What?
It goes up Thursday.
Yeah.
Are you
We'll be
not
on
gonna?
cruises.
No, I'm only missing one day in November. Somebody else is missing 2 to 3.
Oh, well.
Anyway, meeting is adjourned.
Sure.